Hey there, folks. Welcome to the edition of Stranger in a Southern Land. I, of course, am your host, Jake Manning. Today in the program, I speak with my new best friend of 5 years, Adam Page. Don't worry, we explained to you that big, long-running joke at the very beginning. But Adam Page, who you might know from Ring of Honor Wrestling and now New Japan and the Bullet Club. You know, me and Adam have been best friends for like 5 years now, and I still call him a new best friend. And like I said, we explained at the very beginning of the podcast why that is, but it was just a pleasure and a delight to sit down and talk to him. He came over to the home studio. I know he's been very busy recently. His schedule hadn't permitted us to talk sooner, but I've wanted to talk to him for quite some time. He's always been a great guy to hang around and travel with, especially. Big fan of country music. I can get behind that myself. I like that as well. But also, too, we're kind of cut from the same cloth. He's a country boy. His mom is a school teacher, so he's got a very simplistic, very honest, very pure way at looking at the world. And now his wrestling career is taking off. His life is starting to change, not just so much because he's getting married soon, but his wrestling career in general. He's making a lot of life changes, and a lot of the hard work that he talks about in this podcast is just now starting to pay off. And I was kind of interesting how this is going to be, because normally a wrestling podcast, you get the wrestling questions and you don't really get to know the person. But, Adam's a great person, and I wanted to highlight that. And I feel like this podcast has got a good mixture of both. I think you get a good sense of who Adam is as a person and what he's done and what his goals are in professional wrestling. So I think this is a very dynamic and very well-rounded podcast. If you don't know who Adam Page is, or if you've just been aware of him, or if you're a big fan of him, I think you're going to discover a lot of things about him. So very excited to bring this conversation to you guys today. But as always, I'm very excited to be a part of the Shining Wizards Podcast Network. The great guys making the cool kids table a little bit larger. Can't thank them enough. And make sure you check them out and all the other podcasts that they have at shiningwizardsnetwork.com. Also, too, big thank you to my producer, Don, as always. And make sure you support Don and all his other podcasts, especially my other podcast, How Did This Get Booked, that I do with Shane Riley. So if you want to check out Don's other podcasts, especially How Did This Get Booked, make sure you log on to dsct.tv. Now, as always, I like to give you some dates, let you know what I've got going on. I got some comedy dates, I got some wrestling dates. I'm going to give you the rest of August, and then the next following podcast, I'm going to give you the rest of September. But right now, I'm just going to get through August because I really want to get into this conversation with Adam Page. So, just to let you know about this Friday and Saturday, August 19th and 20th, I will be emceeing at Bonkers here in Charlotte, North Carolina, at the Executive Park Hilton, just off of 77 in Charlotte, North Carolina. For more information about those shows, make sure you log on to bonkerscomedyproductions.com and also to Bonkers with a Z. Can't forget that very important detail. And they're bonkers with a Z because, well, they're bonkers. I don't know if that's their slogan. I've been using it a lot when I MC, but regardless of that, Sunday, August 21st, I'll be wrestling for PWX Wrestling at Escapade, just off Independence Boulevard, just in the shadow of the old Independence Arena. Make sure you show up for that show. It's going to be a big match, me taking on Cedric Alexander, who me and Adam Page talk about in this podcast. So very much looking forward to that match with Cedric Sunday, August 21st for PWX Wrestling. For more information about that show, make sure you log on to pwxpro.com. Now, the following weekend, Friday, August 26th, Saturday, August 27th, and Sunday, August 28th, and Thursday, August 25th, I will be with Northeast Wrestling. That's right, for the 25th to the 28th, I will be with Northeast Wrestling. It's going to be a big whole loop. One of those is a makeup from a rain date. I think 3 of the 4 of those are stadium shows. I know Cody Rhodes is going to be there. The Hardy Boys are going to be there. Jushin Thunder Liger is going to be there. I think Damian Sandow is going to be there on a couple of those dates. Ryback, I know, is going to be on a couple of those dates. So for more information about those shows, they're going to be huge. They're going to be monstrous. Some of the biggest events of this tail end of the summer are going to be from Northeast Wrestling, Wrestling Under the Stars. Make sure you check out more information about those shows at northeastwrestling.com. As always, things come up, things pop up last minute, and also, I'll let you know about promotions, about merch, and all these other things that come into contact. If you're a fan with me, I want to let you know more about me, and the best way to know more about what I've got going on, especially last minute bookings, merch, cool little things on the internet you should check out. All kinds of different things. I'm tweeting about stuff. I'm very active on social media. And the best way to get in the loop with all the stuff that I'm trying to push out to you guys is by following me on Twitter at ManScoutManning or on Instagram at ManScoutManning if you have a question about the podcast. Or if you want to become a sponsor of this podcast, make sure you email me at jake@sslshow.com. Or if you want to book me for an upcoming wrestling event, make sure you email me at manscoutmanning@yahoo.com. Anyways, without further ado, like I said, I wanted to get to this very quickly because I'm very excited to bring it to you. And this is a conversation with my new best friend of 5 years, Adam Page, here on Stranger in a Southern Land. Freaked me out. I couldn't hear myself. Check 1 2, like they do it all the just a complete asshole in the microphone. Like check 1 2 1 2. Still my biggest pet peeve in professional wrestling. Like everywhere we go, I swear to God, just like Jesus. Like when you find a good sound man in professional wrestling, marry him.
It's a rare thing.
It's for sure. But Adam Page. New best friend.
Yes, what's up?
As you've been called since...
Oh, God, probably 4 or 5 years. I don't know.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out. Is it like 2011?
Probably. Let's see. That was... Yeah, probably so. About finishing college, yeah.
Yeah, you were looking like Mike Seidel at the time.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Big time. Buck 80 wet.
That's the thing. You two look more like brothers than him and his brother.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I was just thinking about that. And to give context to people why I call you new best friend is the guy that used to live in this house with me who ran PWX early on. He used to say, oh, you're going to love this guy. He's a friend. He's from the farm. He's a good friend. You're going to be best friends. You're going to have a new best friend, Jake.
New best friend. He told me the same thing. Oh, Jake, he's a little scary, but you're going to love him. He's going to be your new best friend.
He's real mean. He don't like nobody, but he like you. You're from the country. You get along, And of course, ever since, and I remember the first time we met, the whole day I was like, yeah, this is my new best friend, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then ever since then, it's always, hey, new best friend.
New best friend. Still new.
Still new
best friend.
Well, listen, in the context of life, in the way, hundreds of years and stuff like that.
Right.
In this country and stuff like that, 5 years, just a drop in the bucket.
Oh, it's nothing.
Nothing at all. But I must confess, like I said, I've wanted to do this for a while, but we've been entangled in this huge feud.
Oh yeah,
and then now of course you're part of the biggest wrestling faction in the history of professional wrestling. So now it feels and looks like I only scooped you up because of that. But
right.
No, you've been on my radar. You've been in my docket. You've been in my crosshairs for quite some time. So I appreciate you sitting down and talking to me, especially as busy as your schedule is right now.
Hey, I just had to leave an hour early. No big deal.
Oh, I appreciate it, especially come over to the home studio. It's a busy day. I was just over there at the end of Mid-Atlantic Fan Fest, and
right.
It's crazy. So,
Good. It should be.
Yeah, I made money selling stuff. I think you're going to be fine.
Okay.
Yes, but no, and of course I've been in a rush all day, and I think you can appreciate this. I was listening to my iPod, and Alabama came on.
Oh, sweet.
I'm in a hurry of all songs, and it always comes on when you're in the biggest rush. I swear, and you're like, screw you, Alabama. You don't know my life. You know what I'm saying? I'm allowed to be in a hurry.
Right.
But no, you're a country guy and stuff like that, and I think that's why we get along so well. But I have some very interesting things, and I don't know, and I'm going to ask this of you because I'm curious about this, because my introduction to wrestling was very interesting, I think geographically, because it might be a little bit different for you. I didn't know wrestling really existed other than WWF for a very long time.
Right.
And then cable came around and I knew about WCW.
Right.
But this idea of independent wrestling did not exist for me whatsoever, because where I was in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, I saw a poster for one indie show one time in Illinois, and it was in college. I think it was a sophomore in college. So I was 20. You know what I'm saying? And it blew my mind that, there's something other than what's on TV?
Right, yeah, there are other people doing this?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
So for you in the Mid-Atlantic region, but you are definitely in the country, in South Boston
Yeah,
area?
near South Boston.
Yeah. So what was your exposure? Did the Jim Crockett Promotions ever run house shows? Did WCW ever run small arenas around you?
Not really, and I didn't even get into wrestling. I mean, I might have been like 8 or 9 maybe, but like even at that time, that was the invasion angle. That's when I got into wrestling.
Oh, now you're making me feel old already.
Oh, sorry. But like to me, wrestling didn't exist until it was all just WWF or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, like there definitely no like house shows or anything like that around the area. Maybe like Roanoke or something like that. And I think I went to my first maybe like a Raw in Roanoke maybe. But like I was one of the kids.
What year though? I got a question
gosh.
about that because I was definitely extra talent at a couple of those Roanoke shows.
It could have been one of those. I don't remember what year it was. Maybe like early 2000s. But I do remember the show was when like 3 Minute Warning splashed Mae Young or whoever it was. That was the show. And it was the one where like...
that's a little before my time.
Okay.
Yeah. I was thinking a little bit later, but because I didn't know what your fandom was, but it would have been about that time,
Yeah.
Back when it was a big deal to see women kissing.
Oh yeah,
like it was a taboo thing.
Oh my god, that was great.
Now it's just every day.
Oh yeah,
and God bless it.
Oh yeah, love America.
Exactly. But so that was your exposure to wrestling. Now here's another thing I got to ask you because this is interesting when you live in the country, like. It's like the idea is always it's bred into you, get a job, do this, you raise a family because that's all you know around you.
Right. Yeah. It's all you've seen. You know, and that's when that's all you've seen, that's all you know. You know what I mean? And like my family was like that in a certain respect. But, I got into wrestling really young and, I mean, still, that was like invasion angle time. But I was one of the kids when I was a kid, like I didn't like to just watch something to be a fan of it. I wanted to do it. So like, 9 years old, I got on the trampoline and we started doing shows and stuff in the backyard, like pretty much instantly within the first few months of me watching wrestling. And then like we had a computer, we had internet, you know what I mean? So
that was a big
stuff.
tool.
Yeah. And then like, I probably found out about independent wrestling within the first year that I even knew wrestling existed. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I discovered something huge. It was just there from the beginning almost. So like I had my cousin was dating this dude, and he was probably right out of high school maybe, and he was doing like indie shows an hour down like from the house. So I would go to those too, like as a kid. So I got exposed to that pretty young. Probably is Jimmy Love running.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what it was called at the time, but like running Pelham or Wentworth or whatever.
Okay, well, can you remember the juxtaposition from seeing a show like that and WWE? Like, what was the like? What was it? What was that turn?
Right.
Like, how's this different? Like, whoa, this is a lot different than what I thought it would be.
Like thinking now, it's a huge difference. But at the time I was a kid, it was like, oh, it's a wrestling ring. That's all I cared. You know what I mean? It didn't matter the production and all that, like the hugeness of it all. It was just as huge being with those 40 people in the crowd in Pelham as it was watching it on TV to me. You know what I mean? Because it was just wrestling.
Because it's a wrestling ring in front of you.
Right. Yeah. And to actually see one, it's like, oh my God, there it is. I can touch it. It just, it blew my mind. And I was still just as amazed by that as by anything on TV.
Yeah, that's why I still, like, when we do a lot of these big shows with big-time wrestling, I take, like, empty arena pictures of a ring. Because there's not a whole lot of things out there that are sexier than a wrestling ring.
No, not at all.
Just an empty arena, and, it's really just fascinating to see. I just love pictures of it. Like, I don't download porn on my phone. It's like all pictures of empty arena rings.
Right, and I can still get to a show early, and like no one's there. The ring is set up or whatever, and people are just milling around. And I still feel like a little kid, like, oh my God, there's the wrestling ring. And I can still like get in it and just pace around. And I could probably just stand in a wrestling ring pacing around all day. And I don't know, just something about that is cool to me.
Yeah, I mean? like I think as wrestlers, then it's like, oh, there it is. There's the thing that's going to rattle. I'm going to rattle my brain around and send me to an early grave.
Right, yeah,
but like
probably.
But like if you really sit back and pull yourself back, like iris out a little bit, you're like, oh wow, like this is pretty cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
So, anyways, you wanted to do it,
right?
You know what I'm saying? And like that's the thing, like so you've got this whole path of people like they've started their own companies and business and are always successful and you do this, but like there's always a backup plan. Like, what was the thought process? Like, well, I'm going to do this, but maybe I'll change it. Chase wrestling.
Yeah, like I don't know, like I kind of got out of wrestling a little bit when I was in high school, and got into like filmmaking or whatever. And me and my buddy made these 2 little movies. I thought it was the best thing ever.
What
I mean?
about? What films did you make?
They were called The List.
Okay,
they're on YouTube. I took them. They're like private or whatever, but I can send it to you. It's called The List. It was just me and my buddy. We played 2 stoners, which in real life we weren't stoners at all. Like, I didn't even know, like, what drugs were, but we thought that was funny. You know what I mean? So, like...
Yeah, it's weird. The small town, sometimes, like, drugs didn't penetrate it. Like, I talked to kids that were younger than me or older than me, and like, oh, we were smoking pot when we were 13. I'm like, but that didn't come to the small towns.
Oh, yeah, no.
There'd be that crazy uncle that was at the end of the town. He'd have it.
Right.
But he was very protective of it, so it never filtered the schools.
Right, yeah, and then, like, for me, it was like watching the 70s show. That's all I knew about drugs, you know what I mean? And even that was... whatever. Yeah. So, yeah, we thought that was funny. Like, all right, we'll be 2 stoners, and then we get, like, Zeus shows up in the sky, and he gives us this list of stuff to do. If we do it all, we become immortal. And it was just pretty much like a really dumb movie, just with all our friends and stuff in it.
Very much a dude, where's your car?
Pretty much, yeah. Really, really low budget, dude, where's your car?
Yeah. So you're like, well, there's this wrestling thing, but I'll do this acting thing too. Or
yeah. And like, I liked working with the camera and editing. I think I liked editing more than anything. And so then,
what were you editing on back then?
Oh my god, some kind of Windows laptop. I don't know, in Movie Maker.
Okay, I remember Movie Maker. Yeah.
And I was like finding like these plugins for Movie Maker and stuff like that to do. Oh, like we make it look like it's all different colors when we're high or whatever. Mm-hmm. Did that, and like my plan in high school then became, okay, yeah, I'll go to school for film editing, not knowing like what kind of job that would lead to. That didn't cross my mind. I was like, oh, that's something to go to school for.
Oh, I made a big mistake.
Yeah.
In the sense that I was like, oh, I'll go for film. And what I didn't realize what I was going to school for was broadcasting.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize there was a distinction between the two. And turns out I ended up in like one of the best broadcasting schools in the country. Like we had like 95 percentile in the workplace.
Oh God.
And I started listening to all these people like, oh, I get to be a camera guy for WXC whatever in Kewanee, Illinois. I'm like, I don't want to be a camera guy in Kewanee, Illinois. Like, I want to be making films. That's what I thought I was signing up for. I didn't realize there was a difference between video and film.
Oh, yeah, me either. Like, I was completely clueless to, like, what a college, a stint in college could mean for, like, a job. I didn't care. Like, my dad went to Virginia Tech, so, like, my whole family was big Virginia Tech fans. So I just thought when I was a kid, I'm supposed to go to Virginia Tech, too. And then it was just a matter of finding out, okay, I'll figure out, I guess I'll do this thing. And then after being there a year, I realized, like, oh, God, it's like a film school. They're teaching us how to make movies in Hollywood and how to move out there and make somebody coffee to hope we can somehow make a movie. And I was like,
get somebody a script.
Do this. Right, yeah. Like, I don't care about this at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But this seems really hard.
Yeah. And I had something I had, at that point then no passion for. I was like, I don't care about this. I like editing, whatever.
Okay, so you were actually in a film school.
No, like I got a degree in communication with an emphasis in film.
I got an emphasis in broadcasting.
Right.
Same exact thing.
Right. So I took, all those basic comm classes and stuff, but then the other ones were like I took a Native Americans in film class. And then, like...
We are pretty much... I took a minorities in the media class. That was taught by the guy who wrote the textbook.
Oh,
so, like, man, we are the same. You are my best friend.
Creepy. Yeah, but I did all that, and I was just realizing, like, after the first year, like, I don't want to do this at all. I just went here because it's what you're supposed to do, right? And, I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but, like, I got my associates out of high school, which was really cool. So I had 2 years to get my bachelor's at Tech, and I had to, fight with like the counselors and stuff about it to make sure I got the classes right. But
so you were taking college courses in high school,
right, yeah, and just like the English and math and stuff like that.
What made you want to do that?
Well, again, that's like something that like I didn't consciously decide. It was more like my mom said, "Hey, you're smart. You should be in like the best classes you can." So then I was in pre-cal and stuff like that, and I was getting A's and stuff like that. Like I was smart and I did my work when I had to, but it wasn't like it was something. Like I said, okay, yes, I'm going to do this. I'm
on a track. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Your mom's like, you're smart. You're going to do this. I'm not going to let you slack.
Right. And it's just like, yeah, sure, whatever. No big deal.
I'm just going to take more school.
Yeah.
I'm going to double down on school.
Because it was what I felt like I was supposed to be doing. Like, there's no question. You know what I mean? Like, why am I in these hard classes? It wasn't like that. I was just like, oh, yeah, just show up and do the work. It was never really like that hard for me, school. But yeah, then when I got to college after that first year, I was like, wow, this sucks. I don't want to do this. But I had a year left. I was like, well, I might as well like leave here with something. So I'll do another year, whatever.
Mm-hmm. So what'd you leave there with?
A bachelor's in communication with an emphasis in film, and then a minor in business leadership. And that minor, I probably took, I don't know, like 10 classes or something like that for that minor. I have no idea what I learned. Like, I couldn't tell you even one topic we discussed. I couldn't tell you, like, anything. I have no idea what I learned from that whole thing.
See, you should have did what I did, the communications degree with the emphasis, broadcasting or film or communication, whatever, but you should have took a marketing class.
Oh, yeah, I
a
should
marketing
have.
minor, because that's what I did, because I was wrestling during college.
Right.
And I knew I was going to, or I was when I finally declared my main minor. I think I knew, or I was in it, and I was like, oh, this marketing thing might come in handy. There's still principles that I use today from those marketing classes, even today.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, and if I feel like it's the case with me, and it's probably the case with a lot of people. When you get out of high school, like, you're just so damn clueless. Like, you don't know about anything. I feel like now would be the point in my life where I know enough about the world to go to college and know what I want to pursue. At the time, it was just kind of like, I'll do whatever you say I should be doing.
Well, and
you know what I mean?
Do you have like older brothers or
no?
See that? Yeah, I think that's one of the things when you're the oldest.
Yeah,
you're always feel like you're clueless.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And then you're always told that you have to share.
Right.
So like,
right.
So there's the sense of responsibility at all points in time, and you have to be on point because nobody's telling you anything.
Yeah. And like, I had no idea why I was taking the classes I was. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And there was a guy who, my last year in high school, taught a graphic design class. And I remember him telling me, like, as a senior, like, hey, hurry up and graduate so, like, I can hire you to teach some of these classes for me, because he's also running some stuff at the college. So, like, that was my idea while I was going to college in my mind was, okay, I'm going to get this degree so he can hire me to teach his classes. Like, for one job. I was preparing my whole college career for one job, which was just him saying something in passing.
Leads you back to your hometown.
Right, yeah. Because it's like, oh, okay, cool, that's a job. I think I might would like doing that. And, like, somehow he ended up moving on. Somebody else was teaching those classes, and then he quit like 3 days before school started, the year after I graduated college. Mm-hmm. So, like, I got that job. Just, really weird, but it worked out so good.
I thought that was weird. When I first met you, they said you were a school teacher.
Right.
And like I said, you look like young Mike Seidel.
I was 20.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just turned 20.
You were 20 years old,
right.
Teaching high school.
Yeah. Kids were like my age, some of them. It's ridiculous.
Yes, because in the country, there's a couple of people that end up going to school a little bit longer.
Right. I mean,
happens.
It happens.
There's that family of people. For me, it was the Hograffer family.
And I remember after my first semester, there was this one girl I had, like, my first semester there. And then she was like a December graduate, and she was probably 19, maybe about to turn 20. So we're like the same age. And she finished up school that December and then, like, asked me to move in with her. You know, I was still living with my parents, and she somehow knew that. And she was like, hey, like, you're still living at home. Like, we should move in together. You know, it won't be like that. You know, we just need somewhere to be, you know. So that was kind of weird. But, yeah, we were like the same age or whatever. I don't know why she felt comfortable enough to ask me that. It was a really weird thing.
Well,
but,
you're an attractive man.
Well,
I mean, like, listen, I'd ask you to move in with me. You're so pretty. Like, but no, like, so now you're teaching school. You're on this path, and actually you've reached your final destination of where your path was supposed to be.
Right? Yeah. Somehow, like, it should not have happened that way.
No,
you know what I mean. There's no reason it should have happened that way, but somehow it did. And I was teaching there, and I was actually miserable the first year I was there because I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. You know, I was teaching stuff like, I remember the first 4 or 5 weeks of the class I was teaching was about, like, Illustrator, and I never even used Illustrator. Somehow. So, like, I had to, like, every night go home, spend a few hours, like, learning how to do a day's worth of work for the students, and then come in the next day and then say, okay, this is what we're going to do, acting like I knew it all along.
You had to bullshit sharks.
I bullshitted for, like, for a solid year. Just
kids that
pure
just
bullshit.
Smelling it on
Oh,
you.
yeah.
They know. They know you don't know anything.
I think they knew.
Yeah, they know. I mean, you're only 2 years removed from them.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So they know you don't know what you're talking about.
But somehow, like, you know, I never ran into too many problems where, like, they treated me like I was their age. You know, aside from that girl, you know, they all treated me like I was just any other teacher, which is kind of weird. Like, I expected to have problems with kids who were my age, but I don't know, they didn't question it. I don't know. Maybe I was kind of a hard ass as a teacher. I don't know. Like, I don't know what made them respect me. I don't know. But yeah, I never really had any problems with that.
Like I said, like, when I first heard, it's like, he's a school teacher. Like, how is that even possible?
Right.
And, like, wasn't your mom also a school teacher?
Yeah, she taught at the same high school. And then after, like, a year or two I was there, she moved up into, like, not a principal, but kind of like a I don't know, more like an office position or whatever. And people would say like she helped me get the job, but that's not really even true. Like they had the guy quit 3 days, and I was literally the only person in South Boston, Virginia, who could teach a graphic design course. So it just kind of worked.
Oh. Listen, my mother was also a school teacher too, so like I know that pain, and also that luxury.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of get to do kind of what you want,
Right. I had my mom as a teacher for 2 years in high school too. Yeah. That was kind of weird. But like I was a really quiet like kid who just did all my work, so it wasn't like a big deal or whatever.
Mm-hmm. You're probably a nice boy. Follow the rules.
I guess I was. Yeah. I didn't know that you couldn't. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you're this nice boy. You teaching school,
right?
At 20 years old. Where does life turn in a different direction, and you start saying, "Hey, I want to get in this crazy world of professional wrestling"?
That started when I was 8 or 9 or whatever. Like my cousin was dating this dude who was wrestling in Pelham or whatever, and I told him like, hey, like I want to be a wrestler. And he's like, well, you're 9 years old, you can't. But when you get 16, I'll train you and you can start wrestling. Totally like thinking.
Okay, so like through pretty much college and everything else, you were still wrestling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So like he's probably just thinking like, oh yeah, like just forgot about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I held on to that. That pushed me for years, and then I finally got 15 or whatever.
You're big on long-term goals.
Yeah. And like somehow they work out. I still don't know how to explain it.
Oh, don't worry, you're young. You'll find out that's the case.
It'll all fall apart soon enough.
You still got a few more mountains to climb, and you're climbing one right now. Trust me. But anyways, he's your long-term goals. What age did you first start wrestling?
I started training maybe at like 15. And I say training loosely because it was pretty much like I would just meet them in Danville, ride with them to a show somewhere in Mount Airy or whatever. They'd have the ring set up at like 1 or 2 o'clock, and then we'd just get in the ring until 5 o'clock and just do whatever. Oh, let's practice Canadian destroyers or whatever. Like that was my introduction to wrestling training.
You just kind of hung around. You're one of those kids that hangs around.
Yeah. I hung around, and then like by the time I was 16, they're like, all right, we're gonna let you have your first match. And I probably should not have been wrestling at that time, but neither should most of the people on the shows anyway. So well, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. So okay. So when you're 16, you're taking college courses, you're taking high school,
right.
And now you're wrestling.
And I'm wrestling on the weekends. Yeah.
No other sports?
No other sports. Like I wrestled. Like in middle school in 8th grade, I would go practice with the high school team and then do like exhibition matches and stuff. And like, I wish I would have kept up with it because it kept me in really good shape. And, I was learning. I was actually kind of good at wrestling, but it was just so boring to me. I wanted to go home and jump on the trampoline and do 450s and stuff like that, So I quit doing that just because I don't want to play on the trampoline.
Yeah, that's just not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
I signed up for flips, okay?
Right.
That's what I signed up for.
Yeah, and there were no flips in
There's
that
no
wrestling,
flips,
so.
there was no leg slapping.
None.
None of that. So, young 16, 18-year-old Adam Page wrestling around, just kind of doing the shows. Like, hey, and you're young. It's like, oh, I'm wrestling. I'm just kind of doing it. But now, when does it come a point that like, you know what, I kind of got to reach past this little area? Like, what's a thought process of the plan there?
I think, when I started wrestling, it was just for the first year or two, it was just like, I was just so happy I was in a wrestling ring and I was getting involved in like, oh, I'm going to do a story, like, whatever. Like, that was just so cool. But after a couple of years, it's kind of like, all right, maybe I'm okay at this. Maybe I'm kind of good at it. Maybe I should try something a little different. And I think by the time I got in college was when I started to realize like, okay, I need to get out of this area. I need to pursue other things. I started like going to I think I went to my first Ring of Honor camp when I was first year in college. So maybe like 18 or so.
Oh, wow. So you were doing those for a while.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I did one, probably my first year of college. And then I did a second one my second year of college. So it was just 2, those 2 years or whatever. But then I would do like little dark matches and stuff, after that, after I finished college too.
Yeah, but I remember you going up there a couple of times and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
I remember them talking about you, like even just the one time I was up there.
Right.
Yeah, I remember them being very high on you very, very early.
Yeah, and it surprised me, like, there were probably this first camp I went to, maybe 40 guys or whatever. And, these are guys who've been wrestling all their lives. They're amazing athletes. They're like, like the guys you'd think they'd be picking up. And then they pulled aside 3 or 4 of us to talk to us, about their like real interest in us and what they wanted us to do. And like, it was me and Elgin and Tony Nese, what I mean? Like, why am I right here? You know what I mean? And they paired me up with Elgin, to do a match at that first camp. And I just went home. I was like, I can't, like, what? You know what I mean? After seeing everybody else who was there, it's like, why am cool. And that kind of validated like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely going to try. You know what I mean? I got to try now.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that I've kind of learned as well. Is like sometimes there's a little thing that people see, especially now that I've been doing it long enough. That it's blaring right away. And sometimes even I don't see them in myself that I do, like little mistakes. And sometimes it's just as simple as a lockup.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's like, oh, I like the way you locked up, and then you're engaged in it. And if somebody has a shitty lockup, they're like, oh, I don't give a fuck.
Oh yeah, who cares?
Or it's a situation like you can just tell the way people move and footwork, and there's a timing thing, and it's really hard to explain. But when you see it, you know that guy.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of people that they can work and they can get there, but then there's certain people that just kind of pick it up pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and when you nurture that gift, it seems to flower.
Right.
You know, but anyways, you know, very early on, it was probably like just get in the ring as much as possible.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to wrestle. I didn't care. I probably wrestled a year and a half before I got paid. I got paid like $10. I did a ladder match or whatever to main event a show somewhere and got paid $10. And I was like, this is for me? Like, this is just for me wrestling? Like, this isn't from anything else? He's like, no, like, that's your pay. I was like, oh, cool.
Well, and I think you can look back on those times now, and I think especially where your head's at, you can look back on those times very favorably.
Right.
That's something I'm trying to teach myself in comedy right now, is because right now it's just get on stage as much as possible.
Right.
Not really making a whole lot of money with it, but I'm getting up as much as I possibly can, driving to Atlanta just to do 5 minutes on an open mic.
Right.
You know, just ridiculous stuff, but stuff I did for wrestling.
Yeah.
But like, I don't look upon those times in wrestling as favorably right now because of how I feel about my career. But like, I remember during those times having fun.
Yeah.
So during this time, I'm trying to remember like, hey, really enjoy this, because I didn't enjoy them when I was wrestling because it's all about getting to that next generation.
Right.
So do you feel like you enjoyed those times? Do you look upon those times as enjoyment?
I think I did enjoy them. You know, I was so young, and like just being in a wrestling ring is all I wanted to do. You know what I mean? Anything beyond that for me was just like, this is great. You know what I mean? I didn't worry about getting paid. It was probably 3 or 4 years into wrestling before I even started thinking like, you know, oh, maybe they should pay me a little more, you know, like things like that. Like, I didn't care. I just wanted to wrestle. You know what I mean? And like, I look back on that very favorably.
Yeah. Because once that flame gets extinguished, you can't get it back.
Oh, no.
Once that light behind your eyes goes away and it's all darkness, that doesn't come back. But anyways, we got to meet up. Tyshawn Williams, I guess we could say his name.
All right.
There may be some warrants filed for saying his name, but no, like he's the one that was running PWX and brought you down.
Right.
Immediately, you know, I joked around and said you're my new best friend, but I sincerely meant it. You were a good kid. You helped out. You're always willing to go on the road with us. You know, another vote I could get in the car when I was like, hey, what type of music we want to listen to? Country music, and then there's another vote right there. You know, so. But always willing to have you around. You know, took you up to Northeast Wrestling.
Yeah, plenty of times. And, you know, I was always ready to like, all right, get in the car, let me drive. Well, you know, I'm like, okay, I need to be the one drive, whatever. You did it the whole way back.
That was a long time. That's when I did the whole way and back. Now I've a little bit mellowed. I've got a little bit of the rhythm now. I drive all the way up. I drive 2 hours to get us to 81 so nobody can mess it up.
Yeah.
Although Caleb, about a year ago, messed up the 77-81 switch. And like, it's like, how long have you been doing this? I've known you since 2007. We've been making this trip, and you blow past the 77 exit and you almost end up in Bristol. Like, what is wrong with you?
Same trip, same exit, same like you.
There's a huge green sign that says Charlotte.
And I'm directionally challenged, you know what I mean? But like, I can do that, I think, you know what I mean?
I was always felt comfortable with taking over and letting you drive. And then the one time we had Corey along that one time, I was like, okay, I got two guys that I know are going to be okay.
Right.
That's what I always appreciate. But yeah, during the days that you were going up,
man.
I was a different person. I had a lot of anger I had to drive out of me. But no, like you're getting around, so you're getting all the exposure, you're getting on bigger shows and stuff like that. Like how are you taking all that stuff? Like, how does that feel? Like, oh, the hard work's paying off, or what's seeds planting in your mind?
Kind of like hard work's paying off, and just kind of like, but really not even that, and not really even that sense of like accomplishment or like, oh, I'm getting to that next level. It wasn't even that as much as like I was still just loving it. Like, oh, I got to be in a ladder match with Matt Hardy. That was just so freaking cool for me, you know, like. Even then, that wasn't like, you know, being worried about, you know, okay,
like, this is another position. This is there's another chess move
it
to
still
get me
didn't
to
feel
here,
like
to
that
get me
then.
to here, to get me to here.
Right.
So, but you had to have some long-term vision of things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because you get to those points where you get on those bigger shows, and then it's the idea of like, how do I get to the Ring of Honors and the other things? You know what I'm saying? And what was your thought process on that? Like, what was your overall plan? Because for me, it was always get to the East Coast, and then I'm on the East Coast. Right. Let's get on the bigger shows, and then it's like, okay, now get on credible shows. Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm still at right now. Even after like 12 years, I'm still trying to figure that one out. Still trying to crack that nut. Yeah. But like, what was the thought processes and the chess moves for you?
I think like. And like wrestling has changed a lot in the past year or two. You know what I mean? Like my thought process 5 years ago would totally be different than what it would be now.
Absolutely.
But then 5 years ago it was pretty much like, okay, I went to these Ring of Honor camps. They actually like me. They told me some things to improve upon, so I'll do them. I was doing like the like extra stuff for WWE, thinking that like, okay, either these dark matches with Ring of Honor are going to get me signed there. I'll be good there, and then WWE will sign me. Mm-hmm. Or I'll do these extra things. Someone will like me there. They'll sign me. Like thinking that was just going to happen. You know what I mean? And thinking it was going to happen fast, too. Mm-hmm. I kind of got, maybe at that point when I started doing those Ring of Honor matches and doing like WWE extra stuff, too, then I started to get a little antsy and then start to think, okay, I want to do this for a living. I need to be doing it right now. I think I'm good enough. Wasn't, you know what I mean? Yeah. I think I'm good enough. And that was when I think it started to, I started to think of things in terms of like moves and positions and stuff like that.
So it was that point in things. And the thing is, too, is like you're able to benefit from something that's going on in wrestling right now that I think is fantastic. Because when I was around, and I feel like 2009 was a good year for me and kind of a peak position for me, like as far as like in-ring work, my ability, my focus and everything like that. Like that was probably the year for me.
Right.
Was 2009. Not a lot of things were happening, though, because the same hot indie guys in 2009 were the same hot indie guys in 2003.
Right.
There was no forward progression.
No.
There was no movement. Things were stagnant. When you did do extra talent stuff, you were looked up, like it was the situation like, oh, I don't think we're allowed to eat catering today.
Yeah.
Randy Orton might shit in our bag. They keep us in a separate locker room. Oh, it's not even a physical room. It's a pup tent.
Same thing.
And they tell us that we have to put it up. So we're like basically in a tent, you know what I'm saying? With no windows, so we're just getting changed out in the open.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why I have a roof over my head.
Right.
Thank you for that in case it rains inside of this building here in Roanoke. But everybody can see clearly through this tent right now because there's no zip up thing. Right. So I appreciate that, I guess. But yeah, and then like nobody did anything by you. And if you didn't shake everybody's hands or you were in the right place at the right time, or you like, I remember clearly walking down the hallway. Because that's all you do is just walk, drink coffee, walk, drink. Because you have to be present.
12 hours.
Yeah, you have to be present. And I remember there's a situation, it was a narrow hallway. I had a situation where like Bob Holly wasn't really paying attention who was walking. And then I had Stephanie McMahon and her nanny who was carrying her baby. There's a situation where it's like I was going to bump into one of them. And I have to make a decision real fast.
That's a tough one.
I picked Hardcore Holly. I apologized immediately. I figured that was the safest decision as opposed to bumping in the nanny and dropping.
Oh, right, a baby. Yeah.
Sorry.
The
baby.
Yeah.
Like, the
baby.
Vince McMahon's grandbaby. I feel like I made the decision. The
Probably
best decision.
was, yeah.
But it's just like that's the environment that guys like us were under.
Yeah.
And it seems like things have now opened up.
I think so too. Like I think I felt the same way you did when I was there too.
Yeah, because I think you caught just a little tail end of it. Like the Bravado Brothers definitely caught the tail end of it, and they started to see the turn.
Yeah.
So
I think, and a lot of it might have been kind of self-imposed too, just as so much as being like, oh my God, I better not do this and that without anybody saying that, just me thinking like that's the way you're supposed to be. I better have my shoes shined. I better whatever, you know what I mean?
All wearing button-up blue shirts with black slacks.
Oh my God, yeah, exactly what I wore.
It was an extra talent uniform.
That was it.
But yeah, it was just that sense of nervousness. If we just kind of relaxed, and also too like. It's almost like now I hear stuff like, oh, guys are welcoming. And I've even heard they've like flown in extras from like North Carolina to go to Minneapolis and then they've gone on the road. Yeah, I've heard this. This is
that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's insane. And then they're giving them full on tryouts and letting them do stuff in the ring. And like,
Now, when I was there, I will say this, like, it was always the same routine. It was like Regal was in charge of stuff. So like it was Monday, you would sit in the stands with Regal and he would give you a talk or whatever. It'd be about an hour or so talking about psychology and this and that and what he wanted to see of you in promos and matches and all this kind of stuff, and pretty much telling you, like, some people have a quality like The Rock. None of you have it, so show me something else, which was a good talk, but, it was always the same Monday, and then Tuesday were, like, the tryout matches, and so, like, I did get to do those pretty much every time I was there, I think. Be 4, 6 of us or whatever, and they'd just pair us up and we'd have matches at, 2, 3 o'clock on Tuesday, whatever. And then promos too.
Yeah. Well, that's insane because it was very structured that way, where
Yeah.
I missed that by like 6 months.
Oh.
6 months. I was 6 months away from that. I'll never forget, like, it was just very, like, weird. And the one time that I did get, like, a dark match, it's one of those things where, like, they're like, aren't you gonna get in the ring, and like, I'm like, okay, and you get in the ring,
Right.
and then I'll never forget, it was me and Drew McIntyre, and I don't know why he did this. I don't know if he was working on stuff because he just debuted on SmackDown.
Right.
And we were wrestling for a while, like, because normally, like, people just stand in there and then just kind of all tag in.
Oh yeah.
And that never happened. Like, everybody jumped down and kind of went off, and then we were just wrestling in the ring, and we kept going back and forth, and it was like, I felt like 20 minutes. Like, we had a 20-minute match where he put heat on me. I had comebacks and calling it all. Like, he was fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, he led me through, but I was there to handle everything. I did everything correctly. And just so happened, like, I'd been wrestling Richie Steamboat on, like, some of these shows.
Yeah.
And Ricky was walking down to the ring with Johnny Ace. So Johnny Ace goes, who is that other guy in the ring?
Right.
Like, almost like get him out. But then Ricky's like, oh, this guy, he trains with Ricky. And then that's how I got my dark match.
Good.
It was because it's just weird timing like that.
Yeah.
And that's best case scenario at that moment in time.
Right.
You weren't getting a promo. You weren't getting structured anything.
Right.
Like, that was like the best case scenario.
Yeah, it was just like I guess it was all like shooting for luck. You know what I mean? Like, try to be in the right place at the right time.
That's all that was. And that's
Yeah.
what was so impossible about that era of wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Like, and now you look at it, you have NXT and have all these guys
Oh my God, yeah.
that, now you're investing in guys that have, like, loved the sport and dedicated their lives to it.
Right.
You're not trying to train football players. You're not trying to take stuntmen and make them do this. You're not trying to get amateur wrestlers. You're getting guys that have already toured the world, guys that, have been doing it and just live for it and will die for it. And also, too, you can manipulate them pretty easily, too.
Yeah.
Because, like, hey.
Because they just want it.
Yeah, they just want it. You know what I'm saying? So that's good, too. But at the same time, too, don't you want people that want it?
Right.
And I think that's really had changed everything. So just William Regal stepping up and doing that.
Yeah.
And then when Finley was out and just looking at guys, that was a big thing too. And I think that's really changed the whole temperature of the sport right now. And I really feel like that's why it's so successful right now, is that there's forward progression.
Yeah, for sure. Like, for a long time, you know what I mean? It felt like it was just so stale, just like no progression whatsoever. And now, I mean, it's just like everything's so hot.
Yeah, it's like, okay, your main event on this New Jersey All Pro show is Low Key versus Chris Hero in 2010.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I get it. Both those guys are fantastic. The match will be great, but, like, that was a big match in 2003. Like, when do we get to see who else? You know what I'm saying? And there weren't a lot of big indie stars that popped up. I think Davey Richards might have been the only person for, like, a really long time.
Yeah.
And he even crucified him, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, like, he went through his. But, like, that forward progression, I think, benefited you. You were kind of already in the mix in these dark matches, Ring of Honor. Guys start moving up. Now you start moving up.
Right. Yeah, it was one of those things where, like, I thought, it was something that was going to happen for a while, and then it kind of didn't for a while. So I started to think, well, maybe not. Maybe I just need to cool down and, whatever. And then that's when it happens, right when you think it's not going to happen. I had... Let's see. I think it was a match with Silas Young for TV, and that was like the day that I signed too. And they told us pretty much like, all right, we're not going to give you entrances. We're just going to come back from break. You're both in the ring, whatever. You're going to look like two jobbers, but then for 6 minutes, just go absolutely nuts. So that by the end of those 6 minutes, it looks, there's an element of surprise because you don't expect anything at all. And then if you get something even decent, you know what I mean? It's surprising. So that worked, and that was the day I was signed to. Obviously, they made that decision before then. I knew of it before then, but that was
they've
that
got
day too.
they've got the piece of paper there. They just want to see. Okay, is he just gonna do what he needs to do? So you just need to hit a base hit.
Yeah,
that's all you need to do right now. Is just get a base hit, and then we're gonna put this.
Yeah, that was it.
Well, how'd that feel?
It felt really good. Like at that time, because I think in Ring of Honor, anything that had aired. Like on TV or whatever, we're just kind of like squash match type of stuff. So actually to get out there and do something and actually have the spotlight a little bit was really good. And especially like I really like the way they introduced us too with, just coming back from break. You're just two guys in the ring, whatever.
That's a great
good.
way to do it. That was very smart.
That's how it should be done.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
For sure. Totally agree.
Yeah, when you set the bar so low, I mean, you could only succeed. You know what I mean? And that makes any bit of success look so much better.
Yeah, and both you guys, and Silas has wrestled for quite some time, and,
Right.
and he would know what to do in that situation.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Like he's fantastic, he's great, and you were itching to go, so like telling two guys like that, go crazy for 6 minutes.
Oh yeah, no problem.
No problem.
Yeah, just been dying to.
So, and that's the thing too, is like before progression started happening. Well, like when I was doing there, it was like there were so many guys, and there were a lot of guys when you got in, like too.
Yeah.
So it almost like it was almost, and I remember it kind of taking a little bit for them to start getting you into the mix a little bit.
Yeah.
And then of course you got in there with Decade and Jimmy Jacobs and BJ Whitmer, which I was so happy when you got in with
too.
those guys. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because Jimmy is so intelligent,
God,
so
I love
bright.
Jimmy.
Well, tell me about what he did for you.
So, I'd maybe been there 6 months or something like that, and I was just doing Country Boy Adam Page, whatever. You know what I mean?
You've been for a while,
and I was okay. I was serviceable, but like I was not lighting the world on fire.
Serviceable. That's a good word.
You know what I mean? Like I was a good hand, but I wasn't lighting the world on fire.
That should have been the name of my 6 disc set.
Serviceable. But it was going okay, and it was one of those things where it's like, all right, cool, he's doing good, but you need to be better than good. And Jimmy Jimmy, Roddy, and BJ had just started the Decade thing, and I was in the bathroom in Chicago, I think it was, and Jimmy was down there, a couple urinals down. He's like, "Hey man, like we got this idea. I pitched it to Hunter. I think we're gonna do it. You're gonna be the Decade's young boy. You know what I mean? You're gonna carry around our water. You're gonna do like a towel and all that kind of stuff." And then he was like, "Yeah, I think we're gonna do it." And then he just walked off. And at that moment, and probably for the next couple months after I started doing it, I was actually kind of miserable with it because I enjoyed working with them. You know what I mean? But at that time, I kind of felt like, okay, I'm good. Why are you putting me in this position? Why are you making me look like an absolute no one?
You couldn't see what they were setting you up for?
I didn't see it.
I could see it right away. I was like, you don't even like. I was like, this is the perfect setup.
I didn't see it probably for a month or two. And like I was coming out and I was just wearing the jeans and cowboy boots I came to the show with, thinking like, oh, I'm still the country boy. Like I need to be wearing this and just a Decade t-shirt or whatever, and half-ass being a young boy. And then probably after a month or two doing it, somebody had a match with Chris Hero that like we came out and jumped him afterwards. He pulled me aside after that and he was like, hey man, like if you're going to be a young boy, like be a young boy. Come with like the track pants, come with, carry around their water, like just absolutely do it, because if you don't, you're just going to look an idiot. And at that point, I think that's when it started clicking for me, like, okay, yeah, if I'm going to do this, I just need to be the absolute biggest young boy, fanboy looking guy I can. So that's when I went and got like the little shorts and would start like doing Hindu squats with BJ before the match, like all that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
And like got into it. And that's when I think like Jimmy I don't think really Jimmy liked me. Not that he didn't like me, but I don't think he really saw that I got it until that point too. And I think once he saw that like I got it,
so he was just looking for a warm body at the time.
Maybe, and maybe he saw something else. I don't know. But I think it wasn't until I really started to get into being a young boy that he started to realize, okay, cool, we can do stuff with this. And then I would start to throw out ideas while everybody else was, and felt like a part of the group. In terms of creativity, like, okay, well, what if I did this? I'm the young boy, like, you're kind of brainwashing me. What if this is what happened? Oh, yeah, it's good, that kind of thing.
Yeah, because and it's very interesting, too, because it's like that, you get a guy that trains you, and you kind of follow him around, but, like, you're just doing it to the umpteenth degree, and very much like, Japanese, where you always see that, because that's what Masawa and Kawada, they did that and stuff like that, and it brings that all back around. So that way, when you came around, and you're like, you finally paid your dues, and you're part of the group, and you were just this dick of like, you got to pay your dues now.
Yeah.
I love that so much, because that happens so many times in wrestling.
Right.
A guy, he first starts off, he gets really humble, and then they start doing a little stuff with him. Then all of a sudden he starts like being the assistant trainer. And then all of a sudden, like the new guys come in and like, let's do chop training.
Right.
And like, dude, you are 2 years removed from being that guy. Why are you going to be a dick?
Right.
And that has never been portrayed before in pro wrestling. And that's what I loved about that character, is that they're like, oh, now I paid all my dues, I don't have to pay him, again, screw you, I'm going to kill you now.
Right, yeah, and I think the original idea was kind of like the obvious, and I think a lot of people telegraphed it too, was that like I would be the young boy, and like I would consistently get better as being a young boy, and then finally I'd stand up for myself. I'm good, that kind of thing. Don't bully me anymore.
And that goes either way. That could either be you're the baby face or I'm
Right.
part of the group.
And I think it was largely telegraphed as like, I'm the baby face. Oh, don't bully me anymore. I'm not going to stand up for this.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And it started to be, okay, well, once Roddy finishes this thing with Cedric, it's going to be you in a program with Roddy, and you're going to finally stand up to him, which like to me at the time didn't feel right. Because, everything you do in wrestling, you try to base it off of how you actually feel, and that's when you're most successful. And at that time, I was just enjoying being the young boy. I didn't feel like that about BJ, about Jimmy, and certainly not Roddy, because Roddy, I think, of the whole group, was the one who was the furthest removed from doing anything with the young boys. You know what I mean?
He's like, get out of my way, bro.
Yeah, just get out of the way. Like, didn't use us in the matches and stuff, and that's okay. That's just was his thing. But like at that time, I was having way more fun being the young boy than I actually wanted to get out of it. And it just didn't feel right. I kept sticking up for like, hey, look, this just isn't the way to go. You know what I mean? If this is the way to go, it's not now. But I don't think it's the way to go at all. I think it's the other way. I think it's that I'm enjoying this so much, and I get more evil and nasty with BJ kind of as the mentor, which he kind of was in that respect, that it's the opposite flip. I flip to the heel, you know what I mean, and kick Roddy out. And that's what we ended up doing, and I think that worked way better.
Oh, I totally agree, and it's different.
Yeah.
Like I said, and that's what you need. Something that Les Thatcher said is, and it always rings true in everything I try to do, is that the only thing we have left now that everybody knows the cat's out of the bag and what we do, and everybody can figure it out, is the only thing we have left is the element of surprise.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We're magicians in that sense, and now that I do comedy, it's understand that your punchline has to be a magic trick, and like, how did you get there? How did your mind get there?
Right.
And the same thing with an angle like that. Same thing with what we do in wrestling. It all has to be a magic trick. So if we go in an opposite direction where everybody thinks you're going to go, that's what people react to.
Yeah. And I felt like the whole deal with me standing up to Roddy and being the big baby face was just so so generic. Yeah, they've seen that 1,000 times, and they wouldn't get behind me because why would they? They enjoyed seeing me get bullied and stuff like that. So why would they get behind me? It felt just like we do that little thing and be right back where I started. You know what I mean? Which just did not feel right. So I would fight to not have that be the thing to happen. And I think once we kind of like had a good idea for a different way it could go, then we all realized collectively, like, that's way better. That's way better.
For sure. And I loved it. And then you got your young boys in and stuff like that. And it was great. And I think like it fit in well with what Cedric was doing at the time, and I think ACH was it TARDIS or was it ACH at the time?
ACH.
ACH, yeah, and I just felt like how it all fit into what those guys were doing, what you guys were doing. I felt like all three of you came up at the same time.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And as guys moved on and did other things, you guys were being now elevated and stuff like that up the card.
And I feel like too, like, me and Cedric and ACH and stuff were kind of at the same place on the card, but like the fans really wanted to get behind ACH and wanted to get behind Cedric, but they didn't have as much of that feeling towards me. So like I couldn't go the same path as them. It just wouldn't work.
No.
You know what I mean? I mean, I could have, but I would have never been what they were in that role. You know what I mean? So I knew I had to be the opposite, their mirror. You know.
And you want to be the heel that works with them.
Yes, and work with them. Yeah.
So and that works out better because you know it's going to be a good
match
that way.
Yeah.
Other than Cedric's going to break your nose.
Oh, yeah.
How many times did he break your nose?
Just once. Just one broken nose.
Just one broken.
But, like, people
Which I love him. I love him to death.
Now, people give, I think, Cedric a hard time about hurting people. But I will say this. These are my experiences with Cedric. Most of the time I've gotten hurt, it's been with Cedric. One of them was when he went to give me a hip toss. I was supposed to land on my feet, and somehow when I flipped, I hit his head with my head. It's not his fault.
Yeah.
Right? Happens. Another one was when he came charging in with a drop kick, and he just came faster than I expected, and I didn't get my hands up in time. Whose fault is that?
He's a very, very aggressive.
Yeah,
and I love him for it. And that's why I think he's as good as he is.
Right.
But here's the thing you got to understand with him. He is a unique blend of athlete that's very interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how the rest of his career plays out, especially this is a very big point in his life and his career right now, how that's going to play out, because he was very big for a considerable amount of time, but he had a considerable amount of speed and agility.
Oh, yeah.
Like, people talk about Moose is a big guy and he can kind of do what smaller guys do.
Yeah.
But Cedric is right in that sweet spot of being, especially at that moment in time, he's leaned down a little bit now, but he was in that sweet spot of being kind of big and coming with such a force.
Oh, yeah. It always surprised me.
People like he was a very special athlete.
Yeah.
That way. And I don't think people really had seen anything like that. I mean, we're talking about somebody like a Too Cold Scorpio or Rob Van Dam.
Right.
Like a very rare athlete. Like that's Cedric Alexander.
Yeah.
And it was very evident very early. And he's very aggressive. And that's the thing, is that if you're not careful, accidents like that happen.
Right.
Just because you're not going to see anybody move that fast.
No.
That's that big.
You're not used to that. Like another one was when I was on the apron and he was trying to pull me in the ring. So I thought he was trying to do like the Randy Orton DDT. So I just hugged him for that and he was like, all right, cool. But then like Cedric, just being who he is, just snaps back so hard with the DDT. I didn't have time to like pull my hand out from under him. So that's when I broke my thumb. Yeah. It's just that Cedric is just so athletic and so fast and so snappy, like that you don't expect that. So like you don't react in time enough to protect yourself.
You're used to wrestling everybody else.
Yeah, you're used to everybody being a tick slower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just not prepared for that.
Yeah.
And when it happens, it's just, oh, crap, it just happened. And it's just too fast.
I think that's the big thing that comes with him on that.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've realized him with too. Luckily, I was one of the guys that helped train him, so I'm aware of his timing.
Right.
So I think that's why I've avoided serious injury with him.
Right.
Although I'm wrestling him here in a few weeks, so we'll find out.
Good luck. Good luck.
We'll find out. And in a main event as well. So we're really going to have to go. So I'm a little bit worried for myself. But anyway, so you're doing that, and like I've always loved the idea of heel Adam Page.
Oh, me too.
I've always loved it. I don't know if I was the first to book it with Country Jack, but goddamn, that's one of my favorite things ever when we put you and Corey together at PWX.
Oh yeah,
and you turned heel, and it's like just seeing you were always like, oh, I'm Adam Page on a card, but then see you just turn into like heel like in a second. Oh, it was so good.
Oh man,
like you felt so at home at it.
It felt so good, and like I've been a babyface for so long, most of my career, probably just because I was young and looked like I should be a babyface.
Yeah, absolutely.
So okay,
absolutely.
yeah, he's the babyface, and I'd wanted to try being a heel. I had ideas of what it would be like.
You started growing a beard. I'm like, okay, I can pull it off.
Right. And then like we did the thing with Corey, and that was probably the first time I'd ever really been a heel, aside for like one or two shows, and like how natural I felt being with Corey and being Country Jack and being a heel within the first month or two just surpassed how comfortable I'd felt or how not comfortable I'd felt being a babyface my entire career. You know what I mean? Like within a month or two, I was like, wow, I'm doing way better at this. I'm enjoying this way more than I ever enjoyed anything. All the rest of it, you know what I mean? This is so much more natural for me. And I think part of that is just because like at that time, that's when I'm starting to kind of like itch for, okay, I think someone should sign me now. Something should start happening. So you start to get a little frustrated. And when you have that little bit of frustration that you can just like take out and just
bravado,
live out. Oh
so
yeah.
you gotta get that out. It's gotta come out. Like, I remember being hot like that in 2009. And like that's when like Ric Flair was around a lot. So I was like, oh, the only way to really be successful in wrestling is kind of be a dick a little bit, and like it kind of boiled over to real life. And like, like you when you get that feeling, that's such a great feeling to have,
right?
And then when that gets validated, ooh, that feels good.
Yeah.
Oh, that feels good.
Yeah.
But you were getting that validation, Ring of Honor, and you're doing all kinds of stuff. Decade broke up, I think, and then you kind of were like out there for a bit.
Yeah, like I did a feud with ACH. Then I did a feud with Jay Briscoe, which was awesome. He's probably like one of my favorite people I've ever worked with.
Country boy, new best friend.
Yeah. He's a newer best friend.
New best friend.
He's awesome. You know what I mean? And we did that thing, and then it was like that was kind of the catalyst. Like they were trying to build up to a Steve and BJ Whitmer match, right? And they were building up to that for like a long time.
Yes.
A couple years. And
it just happened like a month or two. Yeah.
And it's still kind of going.
Yeah.
But like the first thing was that BJ had to have knee surgery. Okay, so we had to put it off longer. Then Steve had to have neck surgery. Put it off longer. Or really it was in question. Okay, I don't know if this is going to happen anymore. You know what I mean? Neck surgery. But I think Steve found out he had to have neck surgery like a week before I had that match with Jay Briscoe. So we started figuring out like, how can we make this work longer, whatever. And then I was pretty much just telling Hunter, like, I'm the only person left to keep something going, with this thing we've been doing. Like, I think this is the point where I finally kind of flip on BJ. And I don't think it really played out 100% the way I wanted to. But yeah, that kind of happened for a while. So it was a little bit of a babyface turn, but it was always, I was trying to keep the same demeanor because in my mind, I wanted to finish that feud with BJ. I wanted people to cheer me more than BJ, obviously. But then I wanted to be right back to who I was because I haven't changed as a person. I was just mad at him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that maybe almost hurt it a little bit. You know, I wasn't playing the babyface as much as some people would have in that role. I was just thinking like I'm still an asshole. You know what I mean? It's just it's against him.
You got to protect yourself. Like,
right.
This is myself as a character, and I feel like this is the volume that I need to be at to be successful.
Yeah.
You know, you got to figure that out. Like right now, like I'm supposed to have like serious matches, but I feel like there needs to be some humor to them. There's got to be some entertainment value because I feel like that's who I am. If you try and be too far away from what yourself, then people don't believe it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Whether yourself is a little more goofier, whether you're a little more serious, or you're a little bit more of a heel, you've got to stay true to what you feel like is the most successful brand of yourself.
Yeah.
But speaking of successful brands, you are now part of a very successful brand right now.
Oh, man.
The Bullet Club. I heard about this, and I was like, is this a typo, or is he just like affiliated with them? Like, I didn't know quite what that all like entailed and how that decision was made, or were you just like, yeah, you kind of are with us? Like, I didn't know. Tell me how that came about.
Man.
Who decided that? How did that? I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it was huge. Like, that was a hell of a phone call. I was sitting at home one night, just sitting at home alone, whatever. And Jeff Jones, who does, you know, a lot of stuff for Ring of Honor, called me. He was like, "Hey, man, what are you doing these days?" And it was like a few days. I was like, you know, I don't know. Do we have a show or something? Are we doing something weird in my travel? He's like, well, we're going to have you join Bullet Club and you're going to work for New Japan. I was like, oh, okay. What?
You could have just said one of those news I would have been happy.
Right. Yeah, it was both at the same time. Just shotgun, boom. Your life's changing. Yeah, that was a thing. And, you know, I think it was that, you know, they're not trying to make two separate entities with like a Bullet Club Japan and Bullet Club USA, but they wanted to use Bullet Club as like a thing in Ring of Honor.
Because that worked out so well with WCW and WO. Like.
Right. And I don't think, you know, that's the idea, but I think it's like we want a more of a representation here as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that, you know, they wanted Adam Cole to be kind of like a leader here, you know what I mean? And then the Young Bucks, obviously. But it couldn't just be a three-person group. They needed at least another person. And, you know, when you think about who those three guys are, you needed somebody who wasn't, you know, not saying like at their talent level, but just at their level in the card, whatever. You needed somebody a little, you know, just a step beneath whatever. And looking at the guys who they could have used, they were just like, Adam Page is the perfect one, really. And he can be the one who's not too sweet and everybody and laughing at everything. He can just be miserable Adam Page like he is now. Mm-hmm. Just let him be the bully. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And man, that just and it, in my mind is just perfect. Like immediately, it's like, yep, this is perfect. This is gonna work.
And now, was there like a super kick tryout? Like we have to see if you could throw a super kick?
No, no, not really. And, you know, and
because
probably
I would fail that. I my knees are so bad right now. I'm like, yeah, I can't throw a super kick. That's probably why I always say I'm always under all the time. I'm not over because I can't throw a super kick.
And I probably the whole time I've been in Ring of Honor until I joined Bullet Club, never thrown a super kick.
Yeah.
And I probably for the past 3 or 4 years had avoided throwing any at all, just because that's their thing. You know what I mean? So now it's just like, you know. Okay, I guess I'm throwing them now.
Okay, 4 of them at the same time.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Cool, I know the deal.
So, but okay, now you're part of Bullet Club, New Japan. How was New Japan?
Oh man, that was awesome. And like it wasn't what I expected to. I'm a really big homebody. You know what I mean? Like I like traveling, and I like wrestling, but I like to be at home. You know what I mean? And then when I got that call about going for almost 3 weeks to Japan, it's like, oh god. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and I'm very happy about it, but at the same time, I'm a homebody.
Well, have you ever like gone for an extensive tour or anything?
No.
It's always been weekend, like
weekends, and like with Ring of Honor, maybe a week. You know what I mean? Where we do something like when the New Japan shows, when they'd come over and we do like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, something like that. That's a week. Yeah. But this was 3 weeks in a different country. I was like, oh man, you know, I was way more happy about it than I was, you know. Not dreading it, but you know, just thinking in that way. But when I got over there, it was just like instantly, this feels way more like home than I thought it would. You know what I mean? Like,
what made it feel like home?
I don't know. Just you know, maybe I didn't think about like you know what it's like to be around a group of you know wrestlers, whatever. I didn't think about that. I just thought about me being alone in my hotel room. Like that wasn't the case at all. You know, we all hung out and did stuff together, and then like the fans are so so passionate and receptive over there. Like the first night I got there were people waiting in the hotel room and like in the lobby, like 20 or 30 people just to see people come in and wanted to buy stuff from you. I sold some gear and all that kind of stuff the first night, and then people paying to take you out to dinner and all that kind of stuff, like almost every night, and pay for food and stuff like that. And man, it was just so much fun. And like the travel was another thing I was worried about because I'd never done like that many shows, in a row like that. But even those were like, it was like one day on, one day off, one day on, one day off. But even those, like, the hotel rooms were nice. The travel was like, I wasn't driving 12 hours somewhere like normal. I was just riding on a bus for 2 or 3 hours. And that was it. And, so it felt kind of easy. And even the matches were lower pressure because they were tag match. I think I had 2 tag matches and then 3 6-man tag matches. So it's kind of lower pressure in that respect. So it just felt comfortable. You just got to
put your best spots in.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So, gosh, that's got to be great. So,
like, awesome.
Everything you expected it to be?
Way more than I expected. Like, just way better than I expected. I go back next weekend, and I'm just, like, itching to go. I mean, it's weird. Like, I'm a homebody, but I'm itching to leave. I'm itching to go.
Okay. So now are you still doing the school teacher job with all this now?
No. Well, I knew I was doing this first 3 weeks, and then, like, I asked Jeff, I was like, how often am I going to be going over? And he didn't really have an answer other than, like, pretty often. That was the only answer I could ever get.
Because it does fluctuate a lot. Like it's very hard, especially I know with booking WrestleCon. Like sometimes there's a situation. Oh, we might have the Bucks. Oh, we won't. They're doing a tour. It's very fluctuating. Yeah. Sometimes you don't know.
You might be on this 2-week thing. You might not work over there for 2 or 3 months. Like you just don't know. But he was like pretty often. And I knew this first tour was like 3 weeks, and I just thought like, and I knew like there was a considerable, like it was more pay and stuff too. So it's like, and my girlfriend who I was living with just got a job as an OT. So like she's making enough money for the both of us. You know what I mean? So like I could afford to take a chance. I was like, all right, well, I know I can't keep teaching because I can't be sick for 2 or 3 weeks like I have been for a lot of Fridays. And I figured like it's probably best if as soon as school's out, I just tell them I'm not coming back next year so that, I don't burn them by telling them right before classes start like the other guy.
Yeah.
So did that and just trying to make it work for a while.
Yeah. Do you feel like you're a better teacher now? Do you feel like you're not bullshitting your way through classes?
Oh no, I was a good teacher the past couple of years. I think I was like really good, and I actually started to like really enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at first it was miserable because I didn't know what I was doing, but after the first couple of years, I got it. You know what I mean? It's fun. I liked teaching by the end of it. Almost hated to leave.
Yeah, you just didn't want to like that. You had to.
Yeah, I kind of had to. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like I was dying to leave teaching. It was just kind of like, well, I kind of got to, and I'd much rather be doing this anyway. You know what I mean?
So it was a tough decision. It wasn't like, all right, cashing in my chips.
Right? No. It was kind of like
I'm gonna sell a whole bunch of T-shirts now. Bye, guys.
Right. It wasn't like I was just itching to leave. Like but I knew I had to, and I knew what I was going to do was even better. So it was a good decision, but it, and it wasn't really a hard decision, but it was kind of like, oh man, all right, I'm going to miss that a little bit, but here we go. This is way better.
That's why life takes you.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes it's a situation like that comes up, you got to jump.
Yeah.
That's the best time to jump is when you're the most scared.
Just waiting for it to drop me. What I mean?
Exactly. All right, so you're on your way. You're doing the Bullet Club thing. You're out. You're busy. What the future hold? Like, where are you feeling right now? What's life? I know you're getting ready to, like, aren't you getting
married?
Married?
Yeah, getting married next month.
Oh, Jesus.
5 weeks maybe.
Oh.
6 weeks.
You feeling good about that?
Oh yeah, really good about it. Just like nervous about getting everything done in time. You know what I mean? Like, like the thought of actually like the marriage doesn't bother me at all. Like we've been dating for almost 6 years or whatever, and it just like that's duh. You know what I mean? It feels like we're already married, or whatever. But just like getting the wedding stuff together is what's killing me now. Like, oh god, we got to get this. Oh, we got to get this. We got to tell so and so this. That kind of thing.
Does it almost feel like you're doing it for everybody else?
Oh yeah. This wedding isn't for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
This is not for me at all.
Is it at least for her?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's for her.
It's at least for her. So
right.
Yeah, I feel like if that ever comes up with me and Josie, I don't think if we ever do anything, it won't be for either of us.
Right.
Like we plan a wrestling show together, we could do that, but like it's just like we'd rather not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I have a feeling it's gonna be like a 20-minute thing at the courthouse if it ever gets to that. Mostly because I want to get on her insurance.
Same here.
Well, you lost that good teacher insurance.
I lost that insurance. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Ooh. And like before we have to be married before I can get on that insurance. So there's these few months of like flux time where like God, I better not get hurt. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'll be walking around with a broke leg for a few months.
Oh yeah, And I've seen some of your Facebook posts about the way insurance shakes out, and I definitely feel your pain on that.
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea why I have to pay almost $250 a month for insurance as a healthy 34-year-old man.
Right.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Anyways, everything's good. You're about ready. You get married and stuff like that. I'm sure people will bug you about kids, but I won't bug you about that.
Oh, thank you. No,
So
no kids.
No
kids.
I've already wrote as a stand-up. I'm trying to write like 7 minutes on why I don't have kids. It's real dark at times, but we're getting really close to the end. We need to probably wrap this up like right now, but I'm not going to let you off the hook, even though you're my friend. Basically, the whole reason I do this podcast is this moment right here. This $1 million question.
I'm not prepared.
That's the whole point.
Okay.
I've got you
Right.
out of nowhere, but this is the whole thing. This is the most serious question.
get ready.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, better. This is the final exam, Mr. Teacher.
Okay.
Basically, I talk to people from all varying degrees of success, and I want to know basically what success means to them. Is it an idea? Is it attached to a dollar amount? Is it obtainable? Do you think that you're there right now? Do you think you're on the path? Do you think you'll be happy when you get it? When I say the word success, what do you think of?
Man, that's a good question. I think I'm there. I feel successful because I know that I feel successful. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a passion and you feel like you're doing something about it, you're successful. I felt successful when I was 15 and got in a wrestling ring for the first time. And then, I started having matches, and when they were good, I felt successful. I feel successful because I'm going to have a good marriage. You know what I mean? Like I feel successful about that. I'm happy. I'm happy with my life. And that doesn't mean one thing or another. It doesn't, if like I broke my neck and had to quit wrestling tomorrow, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm happy with life. I'm happy with the people in my life, and for me, that's success. If they wanted to stop paying me for wrestling and I wanted to keep doing it, I would still be successful in my mind.
You might want to have me take that
no,
out.
Yeah, take that out. Take that. I didn't really mean that.
Don't make that a verbal contract.
No, okay, I take that back.
So there is a dollar amount attached to it. Okay,
right? Yeah, I have to eat. But yeah, that
makes you happy, so therefore it all comes back around.
Right. Just being happy with the way things are for me is success, and right now I feel successful. You know what I mean? And I don't, and like a lot of people like, when are you going to WB? Why don't you do this? When whatever in the moment is what I want to do, I'll do it. And if that makes me happy, cool. You know what I mean? And that for me is success. Like there's no dollar amount on that. There's no amount of like, I got to this level in wrestling. My goal in wrestling when I was a kid was to get in a wrestling ring. I've done that now. You know what I mean? And I will always be happy with that. If I'd had one match and then never wrestled again, I would have been happy with that. I am where I am now, and if I never got any further, I'd be happy with that. If I got way further than I am now, I'd be happy with that too. You know what I mean? I just want to get in a wrestling ring, and I'm getting in one today, so I'm happy.
So just live in the moment.
Just live in it, yeah.
Oh, well, that's good. Well, Adam, you have a microphone in front of your hand, a live microphone. Let everybody know how they can get in touch with you, buy merch, buy whatever, get in contact, you tweet at you, tell you you're awesome or tell you you suck. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
I get a lot of both.
Oh, yeah. Don't I know it? Or nothing at all. That's the scary part. Trust me, when you get nothing at all.
That's the scariest.
That's the scariest.
Yeah.
Trust me. Like, it's better to get the negative comments.
Aren't they talking about me?
Because at least somebody's watching.
Right.
That's the hardening part. Please plug all that stuff right now.
Yeah, I got a Twitter. It's at the Adam Page. Sorry, made that when I was like 17. I have a website. It's Adam Page Wrestling. I don't keep it updated very much, but you can buy my T-shirts and stuff there. So that's good for you to know. Pro Wrestling Tees / Adam Page. I have an Instagram. I just post weird pictures on it. I don't even say anything. So, whatever you want to do with that.
All right. Well, Adam, thank you very much for taking time out of your day.
Thank you, new best friend. It's been a pleasure.
No problem, new best friend.
Thank you.